Hello, everyone, and welcome to Swim with Jim. Hi, everyone. It's Jim Ludwig from Main Street Financial Planning, and our show today on Swim with Jim is going to be featuring Andy Tilp from Trillium Valley Financial Planning near Portland, Oregon. Andy, are you there?
Yep, I'm here. Thanks, Jim. Good to talk to you.
We're glad to have you today. And you're part of the Garrett Planning Network, and I noticed that you have made a lot of postings on college funding and education funding. And I thought today I'd interview you, since our theme this month of August is education funding, and get some of your ideas that we can pass along to our listeners and viewers. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm looking forward to this.
All right. Well, tell us in your words, why is education funding so important?
Well, it's interesting because part of my what I do is I am an adjunct professor at Portland State University in personal finance, and one of the things we've done there is done a study trying to figure out why students can't graduate. They don't make it to graduation. And the number one thing that always comes up is the lack of funding. They can't afford it. Quite honestly, college is very expensive, and going into the future, it's looking like it's going to continue to be more expensive. So I think proper planning, putting some plans together, whether you're just a young parent or somebody that's looking to just get into college, it's just, there's a variety of things that you can do to start to plan your funding, but that's the key, is being able to figure out how to get there, so that's not the big stressor in college.
Well, where should an education fund fit in a family financial plan priorities, and why?
So that's actually a really important question. One of the things I always tell clients, and this is sometimes a little bit hard particularly for parents to hear, is they want to do the best for their kids. They want to say do whatever it takes. But education is probably one of the largest expenses that a family can have. Maybe even more so than the cost of a house sometimes. And I tell parents they need to prioritize themselves first. This is something that it's a little hard to hear. I know I'm a parent, and I would like to have my kids make sure I do best for them. But you can't, I think there's kind of a common theme out there, is you can't get loans. You can't, there's very few different ways to fund your retirement, versus there's lots of different ways to fund college. So that's why it's best to think of yourself first and then prioritize that over thinking about how you're going to fund your college expenses.
Well, in your experience, what are some of the best ways and some of the worst ways to fund a college education?
For young families, start early. That's the kind of a obvious one. Using 529 savings plans is by far one of the best, because you get the tax savings with that. Sometimes you get tax savings on the front end. There's tax savings on the back end when you use it for qualified education expenses. Sometimes families just use current income. That's a way to do it. Back to the 529 plans. Kind of goes with the best and the worst. Think of part of your question is look at the states themselves. Go directly to the state's 529 plans. Utah has a really good one. Nevada has a really good one. New York. Make sure the fees are really low. Some brokerage companies sell a 529 plan. Their fees are very, very high. I would not I would say avoid those, because that's you're just paying so much in fees. Um, there's all sorts of college student aid. That's a good way to do it. Make sure often have clients say, we talk about college funding and says, well, I'm not going to submit the FAFSA, which is the federal student aid form, and they say, I wouldn't be eligible. I say, yeah, go ahead, you may be. Just try it, and you don't limit your options. In the middle between good and bad, I'd say there's plus loans. Those are parent plus loans, home equity loans. Just make sure you're not kind of going back to this. Your second question is make sure you're not putting yourself in jeopardy. Don't put your home in jeopardy. There's student loans, federal student loans. Those are good. Always make sure you don't ever extend those loans. Kind of the common theme on that one is don't have any more loans than your first year salary. On the bad side, commercial student loans, they're available, but their terms are pretty onerous. Rating a retirement account, that shouldn't be done. That's money that's set aside for retirement. Sometimes life insurance is sold as a good vehicle, but there's so many commissions, there's so many high fees. The sales pitch, it's a good sales pitch, but I think it's a bit dubious at times from my professional opinion on that. So that's kind of the good and the bad on those.
So what tips do you have to give our viewers on things like books or articles or websites if they want to do future research and maybe they don't want to contact a financial planner, which obviously you and I would suggest, but to do the basic research, where should they go and when?
Oh, well, so for young families, I think just getting some basic information about your 529 plans, your state's 529 plans, or look at Utah or look at Nevada's 529 plans. Become educated about that. There's student aid, or studentaid.ed.gov. That's a really good site just to explain all about the different options. And they do a pretty good job on 529 plans. As you get closer, maybe you want to, and then there's a really good site, collegecosts.ed.gov, and it actually has some really good cost estimators on how much it's going to cost. I think that's really important so you can kind of get an idea. That goes back to your original question is why is it, if you have a plan and you have an idea of how much it's going to cost, well, you can start to put together how much you can start to put away. Savingforcollege.com is a really good one. Collegeboard.com. Finaid.org is a really good one about financial aid. FastWeb has some really good scholarship research. One of the things to be aware of is you shouldn't have to pay for scholarship research. There's enough resources online that you shouldn't have to pay for that. So those are really the sites. Even as a parent, I used those when my kids went to college, and I keep going back to those as a resource all the time to help my clients. So.
Well, Andy, you've been very resourceful and giving us ideas and concepts to think about and actual websites to go to. Any final thoughts for our viewers and listeners?
So I think it's really important that students, young people, receive a secondary education. I think if you look at the statistics, maybe not college, but some sort of secondary education, but that's all very expensive right now. young parents or parents that are getting closer, it really just requires some planning, some thinking, understanding how much it's going to cost. Getting an idea of that, then you can have conversations with your children and saying these are some realities. Maybe there's maybe a dream of going to some very expensive school, and maybe that's not a possibility. But then if you can have a realistic conversation around it, and everybody set their expectations, then there's maybe not necessarily disappointments. And most important is that the student gets through successfully and doesn't have the problem of they run out of funding and they have to leave school. So.
Well, that's something that we certainly would like to prevent or reduce the number of people that have to drop out. You know what, Andy, you've been really great today. We've been speaking with Andy Tilp from Trillium Valley Financial Planning near Portland, Oregon. Andy, thank you very much. I'll put your contact information down below in the comments section. And if people want to get a hold of you to find out some more advice, they'll be able to do it very quickly. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. This has been Jim Ludwig from Main Street Financial Planning. The name of our show, Swim with Jim. Bye now.